All right, have you ever felt like completely overwhelmed? Like your problems are just, they've got you pinned down, you're not in control, they are.
It's a surprisingly common feeling. We kind of give our power away to these anxieties, these struggles, and it's almost like we end up worshiping them instead of recognizing the power we have within ourselves.
Interesting. So giving away our power, what does that even look like practically speaking, in everyday life?
Well, the source we're diving into today, it makes this really interesting argument. It says that true blasphemy isn't about, saying the wrong words or anything like that. It's about forgetting that inner power and looking for solutions outside of ourselves.
Oh, I see. So instead of trying to solve things from within, we're looking to other people or other things for answers.
Exactly. It's like we're putting our faith in these external forces, these external solutions, rather than tapping into that wellspring of power that we all have inside.
Okay, I'm following. But what does this have to do with God?
Well, that's where things get really fascinating. See, this source challenges the traditional image of God, as a man in the sky, judging us.
Right.
It suggests that God is more like a universal energy, almost like gravity or electricity.
Okay, that's a pretty different way of looking at God. So you're saying it's not about praying to some figure up in the clouds. It's more about tapping into a force that's already all around us.
You got it. Precisely. Just like think about gravity, right? Gravity doesn't care who you are, what you believe, it just works. This source suggests that God operates in a similar way, this constant force, and our experience of it depends on how we define it and connect with it.
Okay, I'm starting to see where this is going. So how does this idea of God as an energy, how does that connect to our problems? Is it like we're plugging into the wrong outlet or something?
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, the source arguing that things like worry, stress, even chaos, those can become our false gods. When we give them more energy, more attention than our own inner power.
Hold on, false gods? So we're accidentally worshiping our problem?
That's the idea. The source material really dives deep into this concept of frequency. And it suggests that everything in the world operates on a certain frequency, including our thoughts, our beliefs. And then the stronger our conviction in something, the stronger our frequency, and the more we're able to shape our reality.
Right, so this frequency thing, it's a little out there for me, I gotta be honest. Can you give me a real world example of how this works?
Absolutely. So imagine someone who's constantly worried about money, right?
Yeah.
So if we follow this idea of frequency, all that worry, all the focus on lack, it actually attracts more financial problems. It's like they're broadcasting a signal of scarcity.
Yeah.
And the universe kind of responds accordingly.
Okay, so what you're saying is if I want more abundance, I need to change my frequency to one of wealth and prosperity, like fake it till you make it kind of thing.
It's not about faking it, really. It's more about shifting your internal state. So if you can cultivate this unshakable belief in your abundance, even when, your bank account might tell a different story, that's when you start to attract different opportunities.
Yeah, I see. So it's not just wishful thinking. It's about kind of aligning your inner world with what you want to experience in the outer world. But how do you actually, do that? It's not like I can just flip a switch and suddenly believe I'm a billionaire.
Well, that's where the source material gets really practical, and it actually draws on the story of Moses confronting Pharaoh.
Okay.
To illustrate this concept of overcoming challenges and stepping into our power.
Oh, okay. The whole parting the Red Sea thing, that's a pretty epic problem to overcome. What's the connection there?
Well, the source points out that God made Moses a god to Pharaoh, giving him the power to overcome oppression and, free the Israelites. So it's a pretty powerful metaphor for how we can all become gods over our own personal pharaohs, those problems that seem to hold us captive.
Okay, so you're saying that same potential for power, it's within us. I mean, I don't know about parting any seas anytime soon, but...
Haha, right. It's not about literal miracles. It's more about tapping into that inner strength. And a key part of that, according to the source, is the I am principle.
I am. Okay. Sounds a little cryptic. Fill me in.
Remember that line from Exodus, I am hath sent me? This source interprets that I am as the formless divine energy within each of us.
Oh, okay.
Which we can shape with our thoughts and belief.
Well, it's not about waiting for a burning bush to tell us what to do. It's about realizing that we already have that power within us to create change.
Exactly. And the source suggests that when we align this I am with unshakable conviction in our desired reality, we can overcome any obstacle.
All right, okay. I'm starting to grasp this idea of inner power. But it still seems a little abstract. How do we bridge that gap between our internal world and what's happening in our, external reality?
That's a great question. The source material actually talks about shifting from eyesight to mindsight.
Mindsight, what does that even mean?
think of mindsight as like your inner vision. It's not bound by what you see in your current circumstances. It's about, envisioning the possibility of rain even when you're surrounded by drought.
Oh, I see. So instead of focusing on the problems right in front of me, I need to focus on what I want to create, even if it doesn't seem possible yet.
You're getting it. But it's not about, ignoring the problems. It's about not letting those problems dictate your emotional state. Eyesight sees, the bills piling up, the job that didn't work out, the relationship struggles. Mindsight sees the potential for abundance, a new career path, a stronger relationship.
Okay, that makes sense. So how do we actually cultivate this mindsight and stop being so controlled by, what's right in front of us?
Well, that's where things get even more interesting. And this source offers some pretty practical techniques for strengthening our conviction and shifting our frequency.
Well, now I'm really intrigued. Let's dive into those techniques.
It all starts with understanding that conviction, it isn't something that just happens. It's like a muscle, we have to actively train it, strengthen it.
Okay, so how do we work out our conviction? Are we talking about mental push-ups or something?
Not quite that literal, but the source suggests that discipline is key. And not in a restrictive sense, but more like self-mastery. It's about aligning your actions with your beliefs, even when it's tough, or inconvenient.
So it's like, if I say I believe in abundance, but I'm constantly stressing about money and overspending, my actions aren't really matching my beliefs.
You got it, exactly. And that misalignment, it actually weakens your frequency and it gives more power to those false gods of worry and lack. It's like you're sending mixed signals to the universe. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I see. So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. But honestly, sometimes it feels like my emotions are just running them out. Like, how do I get a handle on that?
That's where that mindsight comes in again. Remember, it's about choosing to see beyond the surface level of things, not being dictated by the immediate situation.
Right. The whole seeing rain in a drought idea. But how do you shift your perspective when you're in the middle of a stressful situation? It's,
The source argues that we often get caught up in what it calls eyesight thinking, like taking the external world at face value and letting it dictate our emotional state.
So instead of seeing the potential for growth in a challenge, I'm just seeing the challenge itself.
Exactly. It's like saying my reality is defined by what I see right in front of me, instead of my reality is defined by what I believe is possible.
Yeah, this is making me realize how often I just let those external circumstances control how I feel instead of choosing a more empowering perspective.
We all do it, but the source reminds us that we always have a choice. We can choose to react automatically, let our emotions run wild, or we can pause, take a breath, and ask ourselves, what's the story I'm telling myself about this situation?
That's a really interesting question. What kind of stories are we usually telling ourselves?
Well, think about getting stuck in traffic.
Oh, yeah.
Your eyesight story might be, this is so unfair. I'm going to be late. My whole day is ruined.
Yeah.
You're focusing on that immediate frustration and letting it just dictate your mood.
Oh, I know that story all too well. So what's the mindsight version of that story?
It might sound something like, okay, I'm stuck in traffic, but I can't control that. What I can control is how I use this time. Maybe I can listen to a podcast or practice some deep breathing or just enjoy, a few moments of peace.
So it's about gifting the focus from what's out of my control to what I can control, my own thoughts and reactions.
Exactly. And by doing that, you're not denying the reality of the situation. You're just choosing a more empowering perspective.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But it still seems like a pretty big leap to go from feeling frustrated to suddenly feeling peaceful, in a traffic jam.
It does take practice, and the source actually uses a powerful example from the story of Moses to illustrate this shift from, eyesight to mindsight. Remember the scene where Moses is on the mountain and encounters God in the burning bush?
Yeah, that's where he gets the instructions to free the Israelites.
Right, and when God tells Moses to go to Pharaoh, he asks, "Who should I say sent me?" And God replies, "Tell them, I am has sent you."
Right, the I am principle that we talked about earlier. But how does that relate to eyesight versus mindsight?
Well, think about it. If Moses had only relied on his eyesight, he might have dismissed the whole experience as a hallucination. He might have thought, well, that was weird. Must have been the desert heat.
Yeah, I could see that happening. He could have easily missed the whole message.
Exactly. But instead, he tapped into mindsight. He trusted in something beyond the physical appearance of the burning bush. He had faith in a higher power and his own intuition.
And that allowed him to step into his role as the leader and ultimately free his people.
Precisely. And this source suggests that we all have that same capacity for mindsight within us. It's about choosing to see beyond the limitations of our current circumstances and aligning ourselves with that limitless potential of I am.
This is pretty inspiring, but I have a feeling most of us don't go through life with that level of unshakable faith.
You're right. It takes consistent effort, but the source emphasizes that it's not about becoming, some sort of superhuman overnight. It's about taking small, deliberate steps each day to strengthen our mindsight and cultivate a deeper level of trust in ourselves and the universe.
So what are some practical ways to start doing that? How do we make that shift from eyesight to mindsight in everyday life?
Well, the source offers a few techniques that are surprisingly simple, yet powerful. And they all start with becoming more aware of our emotional responses to the world around us.
So emotional awareness is key. Tell me more.
So imagine you're, going about your day and something happens that throws you off balance. Maybe you get a flat tire, or you have a disagreement with a coworker.
Happens all the time.
Right. In that moment, the source suggests we have a choice. We can react automatically, let our emotions take over.
Which, let's be honest, is my default setting most of the time.
Or we can take a pause, a deep breath, and ask ourselves, what's the story I'm telling myself about this situation?
So we need to get curious about those stories that we're creating in our heads.
Exactly. For example, if your story about the flat tire is, this is going to make me late, my whole day is ruined, why does this always happen to me? You're letting eyesight rule your emotional state.
Ugh, that's my inner monologue on repeat.
But what if you shifted to a mindsight perspective? You might acknowledge the inconvenience, but also see it as an opportunity to practice patience, or call a friend for help, or simply appreciate that, you have a car in the first place.
So it's about reframing the situation, finding the opportunity within the challenge. But isn't that kind of denying the negative feelings?
It's not about ignoring or suppressing emotions. It's about recognizing that our initial emotional reaction is often based on a limited perspective. And we can choose to explore other perspectives, other stories that might lead to a more empowered emotional state.
This is making me realize how often I just react on autopilot without even thinking about the stories I'm telling myself.
It's a common pattern, but the good news is once you become aware of those stories, you can start to choose different ones.
Okay, so questioning those automatic stories is the first step. What else can we do to strengthen our conviction and cultivate mindsight?
The source suggests another really powerful practice, and that is to consciously choose the emotions you want to experience, rather than letting external circumstances dictate them for you.
Wait, we can choose our emotions. That sounds a little too good to be true.
It might seem counterintuitive, but remember, emotions are energy, and we have more control over our energy than we often realize.
Okay, I'm intrigued. How does this choosing your emotions thing, how does it actually work? Can you give me an example?
Sure. Let's say you're facing a challenging situation at work. Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed by a project or dealing with a difficult colleague.
Been there.
Right. So instead of letting those feelings of stress and anxiety just take over, you can consciously choose to cultivate feeling of, peace, confidence, or even excitement about the opportunity to learn and grow from the situation.
But how do you just decide to feel differently when your circumstances are stressful? It's not like you can just flip a switch,
You're right. It takes practice, but one of the most effective ways to shift your emotional state is through visualization.
Wait, you're saying I should just pretend everything is when it's not?
It's not about pretending or denying reality. It's about using the power of your imagination to create a different internal experience. For example, if you're feeling overwhelmed by that work project, take a few minutes to close your eyes and visualize yourself successfully completing it. Really, really feel that sense of accomplishment, the relief, the satisfaction.
So you're creating a mental movie of the outcome you want and allowing yourself to actually feel those positive emotions.
Exactly. And by engaging in this kind of visualization regularly, you're essentially retraining your brain to associate those positive emotions with that situation.
So over time, instead of automatically responding with stress and anxiety, I can train myself to respond with, peace and confidence.
Yes. And as you do that, you're strengthening your conviction, you're raising your frequency, and you're becoming more aligned with the reality you want to create.
This is making a lot of sense. It's like we have this incredible power within us to shape our experience, but we often forget it's there.
That's the message that this source is conveying. It reminds us that we are all capable of accessing this power. It's not about being special or chosen. It's about recognizing that we are all expressions of that I am energy that's always present within us.
It's a powerful concept. But the source keeps talking about becoming a god over our problems. Isn't that a little bit of a bold claim?
It is a bold claim, and that's why it's important to understand what God means in this context. It's not about becoming a supernatural being with magical powers.
So it's more metaphorical than literal?
Exactly. It's about embodying a certain mindset, a way of being in the world that's characterized by confidence, clarity, and an unshakable faith in our own ability to navigate challenges and create the life we desire.
Okay, I can get behind that. But realistically, there are going to be times when we're faced with problems that feel truly overwhelming. What does the source say about those moments when our mindsight wavers and we start to feel like we're losing control?
The source acknowledges that those moments are inevitable. We're human after all. But it emphasizes that even in those moments of doubt and uncertainty, we have a powerful tool at our disposal, and that is surrender.
Surrender? You mean like giving up? Letting the problems win?
Not at all. The kind of surrender the source is talking about is about recognizing that sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is release our need to control the outcome. It's about trusting in something larger than ourselves, whether that's the universe, a higher power, or even our own intuition.
So it's about letting go of the reins, even when we're scared or unsure of what's going to happen.
Yes. And that act of surrender, paradoxical as it may seem, can be a powerful catalyst for transformation. It allows us to open ourselves to new possibilities, to solutions we might never have considered when we were clinging tightly to our own limited perspective.
That's a really interesting concept. But this surrender thing, it sounds like a pretty advanced practice. Are there any baby steps we can take to build up to that level of trust and letting go?
Absolutely. And the source suggests some very practical ways to incorporate this principle into our daily lives.
I'm all ears. Tell me more. So how do we, dip our toes into this whole surrender thing without feeling like we're just giving up? Where do we even begin?
Well, one of the simplest yet most powerful practices is to start each day with gratitude.
Gratitude. Okay. How does being thankful tie into surrendering control?
Well, when you focus on what you're grateful for, you're shifting your attention away from what's wrong or what you lack.
So instead of dwelling on, problems, I should be celebrating what's good, even if it feels like there's not much to celebrate.
Exactly. It's a subtle shift, but it can have a huge impact on your emotional state.
Yeah, I can see that. Focusing on the good stuff definitely, puts me in a better mood. But does it really help with those bigger issues where surrendering feels impossible?
Think of it this way. When you practice gratitude, you're acknowledging the abundance that already exists in your life.
Even if that abundance is just a roof over my head or a good cup of coffee.
Precisely. And that simple act of appreciation can create a sense of inner peace, which is essential for surrender.
Okay, that makes sense. So gratitude is like a gateway to surrender. What else do we do to cultivate that sense of letting go?
The source also suggests practicing mindfulness throughout the day.
Mindfulness, okay. That word gets thrown around a lot these days. What does it actually mean in this context?
It's about bringing your awareness to the present moment, noticing your thoughts, your feelings, and sensations without judgment.
So it's like hitting the pause button on that constant mental chatter that's always running in the background.
Exactly. And even a few moments of mindfulness can create space for peace and acceptance.
And that peace and acceptance is what allows us to surrender to the present moment, even when it's messy or challenging.
Yes. It's about trusting that even if things aren't perfect right now, there's a bigger picture unfolding that we might not fully understand.
This is starting to sound a lot like faith.
It is. But the kind of faith the source is talking about isn't blind belief. It's about trusting in the unseen forces that are always at work, even when we can't see the evidence.
So it's like having faith in ourselves, in the universe, in something bigger than our limited human understanding.
Exactly, and that kind of faith can be an incredibly powerful force for transformation.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener. I'm starting to see my problems in a whole new light, not as these huge roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth, and maybe even a chance to practice surrendering and trusting the process.
That's a beautiful way to put it. And it aligns perfectly with what this source is trying to convey. It's about recognizing that challenges are inevitable, but they don't have to control us.
We have the power to choose how we respond, to tap into our inner strength and become gods over our problems, not by controlling everything, but by learning to let go when we need to.
Exactly. And the more we practice these principles, the more we align ourselves with a life of abundance, joy, and limitless possibility.
This has been such a mind-bending deep dive. But what really sticks with me is this idea that we're not meant to be victims of our circumstances. We have way more power than we realize to shape our thoughts, our emotions, and ultimately the reality we experience.
That's a powerful realization. And as the source suggests, it can completely change the way we live our lives.
It makes you wonder if we can apply this God mindset to our personal problems, what could we accomplish if we embrace this sense of empowerment and possibility on a larger scale? That's something I'll definitely be thinking about. Thanks for guiding me through this incredible deep dive.